Life after art school. Let's talk about it.
Life after art school, it can be hard.
I have my iPad with my notes ready. Let's get into it. I feel like one of the biggest questions that people have when they want to pursue the arts is, what am I going to do after I graduate? How am I going to make a living? So I kind of wanted to share a bit of my experience as somebody who graduated from art school and has an art degree. I wanted to make this video for a few reasons. I wanted to kind of create a space where other people who have graduated with an art degree can kind of share whether they found success within agreeing with and within arts, whether they're doing something different, regardless of what path they took. Are they happy with the path that they took and what it looked like to get to where they are? I wanted to have a forum for that, for people to like comment and like leave their experience. And then another reason I wanted to kind of act as like a form of data for somebody who is thinking about going into art school and they're asking themselves this question. I just wanted to kind of have my experience out there to show what a life after art school can look like and see what some of the obstacles and things may be of going to art school. And then finally, for people who are in the middle of getting a degree and they're about to graduate and probably thinking to themselves, like, what should I do? What should I be doing next? So I kind of just wanted to have this kind of forum and space for that. So I feel like I should probably get into it and explain a little bit about myself and like my background. So a bit about me. I have an art degree and I majored in music. I feel like I don't really see a lot of like the music side of like an art degree. Like when people talk about the arts, I feel like I see a lot of fine art and I don't really see a lot of music people speaking on it. Maybe it's just not on my algorithm, but I have a music degree, and initially I actually started school to be pre-med. I did not want to be pre-med. I did not want to be a doctor, but immigrant parents, if you know, you know. So I ended up going for pre-med, but eventually I was just so down bad and I couldn't do anymore. And I was like, I need to live my life for me. I need to study what I want to study. Let me go to pursue music. Let me go to art school. And I learned a lot within my degree. I feel like my coursework looked like, I have a major in music and I have a minor in music business. My coursework looked like music theory, arrangement, and that sort of thing. Getting vocal lessons and things. That was my main instrument, was like voice. So learning in that regard. And then on the music business side, I was learning things like publishing, marketing, a bit of legal implications, and that's what my curriculum looked like. But you know what wasn't enough a part of my curriculum? Like real application of like how to get a job. I feel like schools have certain resources, but I feel like when I tried to leverage them, it was like hard. Like I would try to make a meeting with counselors and to learn what I could be doing when I graduated, but it was hard for me to like get those through and like get that scheduled. And I feel like when I was in school, I think I had a lot of drive in me when I was in school for pursuing music. But then something happened around the world that kept people inside. If you know, you know. Well, we all know. And I feel like that changed a lot of the trajectory of like how I was pursuing music and what music even looked like at the time, because it did not look the same. Like people weren't touring, people weren't doing shows, they weren't doing festivals, etc. They weren't even able to really get in the studio like that. So it kind of changed what that looked like for me. And when it was time to graduate, I kind of was at this point where I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Because I feel like I didn't really learn enough about how to really leverage that skill. Speaking of which, I feel like a lot of curriculums, especially music, can do a better job. I know you can let me know with art degrees how you guys feel about your curriculum, but I feel like they could have done a little bit better job within the curriculum. Because I noticed that I feel like they did some things intentionally to keep certain information or something like that away from certain students. For example, I mentioned I had a minor in music business. There was this program I found out about, not even through my minor, because I guess they only told the majors about it, the music business majors about it. But there was a program that would be super helpful to the music majors. And I feel like it would only make sense for the music majors to be a part of that program, but they didn't tell music majors about it. Like, what? I only found out about it through like a friend of somebody else that was like in it and found out about it and knew about it, and they told me. That's how I found out about it, and that really made me side-eye, because it was like, what is going on here, right? So alas, once I graduated, I was kind of like, I didn't know what to do. And I feel like something that hit, that if you are an art major, that may hit you when you graduate, is like suddenly you're not in this bubble of just creativity and just going to class to do music and just doing your craft every day on most parts. Suddenly, like, you're in the real world and it's just very different. And I feel like if your identity is very much attached to your artistry, you can get a real shake of something when you graduate and you're into that real world, because you start to feel like, if you feel like you're failing at your art, then it feels like a personal attack on yourself. And I feel like that's kind of like a hard thing to navigate as like a young adult, and there's already so much uncertainty, and that uncertainty seems tied to your identity, and it kind of seems like a personal hit. So things are like really rough, and from that, at a certain point I had to like really like lock in and scrounge and figure out what I was gonna do next and how I was gonna afford to make a living, because I don't have rich parents. Like, nobody's gonna just like fund my projects and things like that. I knew I wanted a certain type of life as well beyond arts, and I needed to figure out how to start achieving some of those things. So essentially, this kind of like leading me into like the next thing is like what life looked like after graduation and what I did to make a living. So I learned a bit more about things like design, so UX specifically, and I learned a bit more about design thinking, and I just kind of like ran with that and tried to get a job with that. So I took like a Google UX course, and I did like my own personal work and like learning and studying, and then I also tried to find like mentors and like find people who are in the industry and kind of like talk to them. I feel like I never really had a mentor per se, but I feel like there's things online where you can kind of discuss and chat with people to see more about the industry and like more about what you need to learn. And eventually, thankfully, I got a job that paid a decent amount and like got me through and like afforded me so many things. And then from there, I took more skills that I learned within that job. So the job that I did focused on like internal, like designing and content work for like internal comms and things like that. So I was like making decks, I was working on internal sites, I was kind of writing content for like certain teams and things like that. And then I knew that I wanted to make a bit more, so I was trying to like pick up as many skills as I could. To be honest with you, I didn't really have a certain direction. I knew what could leverage, which was like my creativity and like my design. And I feel like because of that creativity of like having to navigate music, when you're in music, you have to like play so many roles. I feel like you have to be your like marketing manager, you have to be like your writer to write your bios, your press kits, etc. And you have to do design if you want artwork, right? And you can't really pay for it, then you have to do design. So I feel like I got a lot of these skills from my creativity, and that's kind of what I just try to lean into and leverage to find my living and to make an income. So eventually at my job, I tried to learn more things so I can make more. And then now it led me into kind of like the back end technical side of like marketing. So I still do a little bit of creative things, but not as much. I think I dealt with a little bit of strategy, and then and like kind of process building and like system buildings and things like that, and then some project management aspects side of marketing. And that's where I am currently. Now, I want to kind of talk about first I want to talk about like what I've been able to do because of like the living that I've been able to make and like my life outside of just career wise. So I've been able to travel. I feel like that was like a big thing that I posted on my travel videos, which I'm really grateful for. I feel like having that income allowed me to do those things. And I love traveling. When I mentioned how your creativity can feel really tied to you, and it feels like your whole identity. So when you start failing at that, you feel like you're failing at everything, and you're like, you have this existential crisis. As I was like coping with that, I really sat down to myself and got a better understanding of like what all I really valued outside of just music. So like when I was crashing out in one aspect of my life, it didn't feel like that was the end of the world. So like I knew that I wanted to travel. I knew that eventually I wanted to kind of have my own space. And I knew I wanted to connect with people and do these different things. So I kind of figured out what was important to me, and that led me to one of the things of travel. So having that income to travel was like really helpful, and I think it really fulfilled me in a lot of ways and helped compensate. So when I felt like I was feeling in like my music aspect, I was able to do other things and find other joys in my life. So I traveled. I also funded my creativity as well. I feel like I never really stopped music, or and if anything, I've been interested in even more creative things, so I used it to fund that as well. And then I think a big one was I was able to buy a house from the income that I made from my job, and having that stable job versus like probably like freelancing and trying to figure out that stuff out. So it was able to afford me to get a house, which I'm really happy about. Even though right now I'm kind of having a crisis as the country is heading in the way that it is, what I should do next if I should even be in this country, but different story for a different day. But I feel like getting a job and like making a living outside of music has allotted me some happiness, even if I felt like I wasn't where I wanted to be in music. And that kind of like leads me into now, today, right here today, how I'm feeling and like my plan for the future. I feel like right now, I feel a little bit stuck and confused again. I mean, life is a roller coaster, right? I feel like my personality type, I don't know if it's like really adapt for the corporate sphere. And in my heart, I just really do want to be able to find work and fulfillment from my passions and from music, from creativity. I really want to find a type of work that like brings me purpose. Because I realize that even with like creative work in like a corporate setting, it's like not fulfilling, right? Like when a company's mission is to like build profits and like drive profits, and you're just kind of like a bug in that kind of like sea to help bring those profits. You're just an ant, right? To help bring those profits. It's not as fulfilling. And I've just learned certain different things within corporate, and it's just not as fulfilling. I don't think it's kind of meant for me. So now I'm trying to figure out what I can do to get back on a path of trying to make a living with my creativity, with my art. So that's my next step. That's been my experience of being a person who has an art degree. And I feel like it's very funny how like the world works that way, and like you just try all these different paths and you try to make something stick. And when it comes to pursuing the arts, it's hard, man. It's really hard, and there's no straightforward path to it. Really, there's no straightforward path to success, as opposed to like maybe certain other careers. Like I guess like if you're a doctor, you know that you know what you're supposed to do. Even if it's hard, it's not gonna be easy, but like the path is pretty set. Like people aren't veering too far outside of that path, right? You go to your undergrad, then you go to medical school, then you do residency, then you get your job as a doctor. It's like straightforward. Or like let's say if you were a computer science engineer, you go to school, you do your internships, you graduate, and you try to find that job. Like it might be hard to like find a job, but the path would be relatively straightforward. And I feel like with music, it's like literally not that. And with arts in general, it's like it's never that, bro. You have to find so many twists and turns. I feel like that's kind of like the cost that you pay to pursue your dream, and the cost that you pay to pursue what you love and try to live a life that's kind of like different from the norm. And it's hard, man. It's hard. And I don't say all of this to scare people, but I do say all this to like try to build an expectation, or like try to build an awareness with people so they know what to expect, if that makes sense. That way they're not just like diving head first in like gleeful ignorance of just the dream of just like I want to do this thing, I love it so much, because life happens, and like as you grow, the environment around you change, your expectations seem to somewhat change as you get older, whether you abide by those societal expectations, etc., or not. I feel like the weight of them can still hit you. And if you're just going into kind of like art school without that knowledge, and without really considering like what life can look like, I think it can be hard to prepare for that. But if you know what it's gonna look like, even if it's hard, it doesn't matter if it's hard. Like if you want to do it, you can do it. But at least now you have an expectation and know how to work towards it. And I feel like with art, you have to like work even harder. You have to leverage different skills, learn different things in order to survive, so you can fund the things that you want to do. If you don't have that money coming in, if you don't have rich parents or things like that to like fund you and fund your creativity, you have to fund it yourself. And I feel like it's important to have that in the back of your head so you can start trying to plan for it. Whether you get a secondary major that can be a little bit easier to get a job with, be a little bit easier to get financially stable with, to be able to fund your other things. Because one thing I've been realizing is that a lot of like people, even like people who are like big in art spaces, a lot of people sometimes they have other jobs, and within like the social media sphere, people don't even talk about it. And I feel like when younger people watch that, or like when people outside looking in watch it, I think they just see the like creative life and they think to themselves like, oh, that looks so great. and they don't even know like the extra work that's like going in to even live that life in the first place. They don't know that people have these second, third jobs to do it. So I just kind of want to show the experience of like, like you do of what it looks like to have those jobs, and like kind of make it a little bit more transparent so you can like start considering those things. And like I said, it may be hard, but if you want to do it, you can do it, and don't let it stop you from doing it. But if you realize that maybe it's not the path for you, maybe you want to do something else and leverage your time in a different way, and then keep the creative things you want to do as like hobbies, etc. You can make that choice as well. And also too, I feel like finally I want to leave off on like the last note being that the decision that you make, either way it goes, whether you pursue art school, whether you don't, and like whether you pursue arts and whether you don't, it's not finite. Life keeps going. Life can be long, life can be short, right? But you can change your mind anytime, and you can like go to art school and decide you don't want to do it anymore and try to pivot and do something else. Or you cannot go to art school and then later on decide that you want to pursue it and pivot and do that. So I feel like you have your options in life. It can seem hard. It can seem like you don't, but it doesn't have to be a finite decision of like you pick one pathway in life and then that's just it, But that's my little 2 cents. That's me yapping about life after art school. Hope you stick around the channel. I don't know what I want to do on my channel right now. I'm kind of like trying to figure out what I want to post and things like that. But alas, hope you guys stick around. Leave your comments, leave your experiences, please, in the comment section. Tell me about your story. Tell me about your experience. Tell me about your thoughts, what you're thinking about. And yeah, that's it for me. See you next time. Bye.